The fire started in the middle of the house somewhere, and it didn't take long for it to be lapping out of the windows. By the time the first fire engines arrived, the whole place was engulfed. Neighbours and passers-by helped out as officers waited for reinforcements.
We got on the veranda, there was 2 firemen in front of me, and there was a fair bit of spray from a rather big hole. I thought, what's the point in you letting the water go to waste? It was there about 10 foot away from the fire, and the heat was immense.
The house was supposed to be deserted, but firemen still tried to break in to make sure. Constable Greg Thane crawled through the smoke but was turned back.
We had difficulty even get to within close range to the fire due to the heat and smoke.
Despite several different hoses being directed towards the flames, the fire picked up in intensity. The 100-year-old timber's perfect fuel.
Oh, we're just standing here, we thought we were going to get toasted.
Even as the roof started to cave in, officers continued the fight, the radiant heat scorching the grass for 10 metres around the house. After 20 minutes, the fire was out. One of Cessnock's oldest homes completely gutted.
It was one of the old style houses, great timber, floorboards, old furniture in it and everything.
The house has been unoccupied since the owner died 20 years ago, and the electricity had been disconnected just as long. Firemen are convinced it was deliberately started.
The savagely beaten body of George Woodcock was found in his Western home in November 1990. A preliminary hearing of the murder charge against Trevor Burke over the alleged killing continued today in Curry Local Court, with Burke's former de facto wife Judy Dunn resuming her appearance in the witness box. Defence counsel Warwick Anderson, under cross-examination, put to her that she had plenty of occasions to go to police with her allegations about the Woodcock murder and that her evidence was a lie. Dunn retorted, "It's the truth. He, Burke, had done it." Today's proceedings saw intense legal debate over the admission into evidence of a machete presented to the court by police. Burke's counsel Warwick Anderson argued there was no evidence to prove the instrument had been used in the killing of George Woodcock. However, Magistrate Gary Cox admitted the implement, saying it forms some part of the circumstantial case against Trevor Burke. The court later heard John Dawson admit he owned the machete and that he had loaned it to Burke in 1990. Witnesses also gave details about the disposal of the implement in bushland following the Woodcock killing. The hearing was adjourned this afternoon, part heard, with some police evidence yet to be presented. Trevor Burke has been remanded in custody until the case resumes next Thursday in Curry Local Court.
They may be small in stature, but they're big on confidence. 17 harness racers with their ponies and mini ponies from the Hunter Valley Club are heading to Harold Park tonight, and it's expected one of them will come home as Miracle Mile champion.
They're all hyped up tonight going to this Miracle Mile. I don't know who's the worst, the kids or myself.
It's illegal to bet on them, and they aren't allowed to win cash for their efforts. The biggest reward is the prestige amongst their peers and the odd trophy. 11-year-old Adam Regari is already being tipped as a future champion. His father was the Hunters' leading trainer until an accident ended his career, and his grandfather is the area's leading driver and trainer. Most of the drivers have family ties to the sport, and racing with the ponies is treated as a stepping stone to the thoroughbred ranks. And even if they don't continue in the sport at the moment, they're certain to win plenty of awards for cuteness.
AIDS has been known about for more than a decade, but still it seems not everyone is taking precautions.
Well, a lot of young people just think, oh, well, it won't happen to me, and that's what we just have to combat because it can happen to anyone.
In the lead up to World AIDS Day on Wednesday, youth groups took their message to the streets. They're targeting young intravenous drug users and people who don't practice safe sex.
It is getting through to some young people, but not others.
The theme of World AIDS Day is Act Now. At 4 o'clock this morning, the Sydney woman lost control of the Pajero as she was overtaking on John Renshaw Drive at Black Hill near Curry. The vehicle rolled into the path of an oncoming sedan. The woman died instantly. Her husband and their 6-month-old baby were taken to the John Hunter Hospital. The man died this afternoon. The couple's 5-year-old and 3-year-old children are being treated for shock. The driver of the other car from Coffs Harbour suffered spinal injuries. Meanwhile, a Central Coast man suffered multiple fractures after he fell asleep at the wheel about 5 o'clock this morning. The 20-year-old from Woy Woy had been driving along Woy Woy Road at Carryong. The car ran off the road into a brick wall. His passenger wasn't injured. The driver is in a serious condition in the John Hunter Hospital. Jane Anderson, NBN News. The lack of women in government, that was the issue on the agenda at Newcastle's Labor Women's Forum, a situation Jeanette McHugh is well aware of. In 1983, she became the first woman in New South Wales to be elected to federal parliament. Today, the power brokers in the House of Representatives are still predominantly male, only 13 women and 147 men.
But the point is that anything less than half is not representative because we're half the population.
A similar conference in Perth resolved that by the year 2000, half those in Parliament should be women. The question under consideration today was how to get them there. Jeanette McHugh says changes may be needed at the grassroots level, when a party's choosing which candidate it will field in a seat.
The more women stand, the harder it's going to be to knock them back.
What happened there? He just seemed to turn right. Now, Hodges is on fire. I didn't see what happened at all. Did you notice anything?
I didn't notice anything either. Like you said, it looked like it might have been just a steering problem, or it just deviated so suddenly towards the fence. But obviously something's gone on, because Hodges waving the finger and pointing the finger of blame at someone there, and he's not too happy at all.
I think he's pointing the finger at John Pine.
I don't think Piney was challenging on the inside, so there may have been a touch, but as you said, I thought it just a mechanical problem.
Descendants of the Awabakal tribe invited those who've settled in the hunter to take part in a traditional Aboriginal smoke ceremony.
But as they come through it, they walk onto sacred grounds and therefore have to care for it and nurture it and look after it and protect it. So it'll care for us and nurture us so our children can walk this land hand in hand as one people, one race, one nation.
When Europeans first settled in Australia, there was no recognition of Aborigines' rights to the land.
They recognise that a lot of injustices have been done and that it's a way of saying that white people and black people can meet together.
Very proud.
Newcastle is renowned for its beaches and the high calibre of surfers it produces. Who better to comment on what is occurring off our coastline than those who use it daily? The study by the Surfrider Foundation has taken 12 months to compile and involves the views of thousands of surfers nationwide. It's identified 4 pollution hotspots in New South Wales. High on the list is Newcastle.
If Newcastle City is serious about its tourism future as a beach city, a beach capital in Australia, which it enjoys currently, it's going to have to get very serious consideration to seeking alternatives to ocean disposal of sewage and stormwater.
Brad Farmer, who heads the Surfrider Foundation, is critical of the Hunter Water Corporation and other authorities, which he says are ignoring possible alternatives to ocean dumping. Along with sewage outfalls, the study also identified coastal development as contributing to the woes of the ocean and the degraded state of our beaches. In particular, Mr Farmer points to housing developments like Pinny Beach south of Newcastle, which is awaiting council approval. He says there's an ad hoc approach to development, with too many authorities, all with little power, looking after our coastlines.
We hope that by 2 years' time we'll have a National Coastal Protection Authority in place looking after our wonderful Australian coastline.
Jodie McKay, NBN News.
Graham Morris was back at work today and business has never looked so good. Just hours after wrapping up the last of the 3 major Australian titles, he's been inundated with requests for gear and mechanical work. But it could have been a much different scene. Yesterday, riding his bright yellow bike, he won the New South Wales 600 Supersport Championship in the last race of the day, holding out Tare's Troy Bayliss.
Well, you could basically say I won the championship by half a bike length, so it doesn't get much closer.
Last month he won the Victorian and Australian Championships. The New South Wales title was the perfect way to cap a brilliant year.
Basically nothing much else I could have won. You know, it all worked out pretty well. Of course, it would have been nice to win every race I went in, but you can't expect that.
And although he's now reaping the benefits through his business, there were no big checks waiting for him like on the Grand Prix circuit.
If I was racing in the States even, I'd be on quite a good wicket right now, but in Australia it's difficult to get that sort of backing, but you know, I'm not complaining. We've got a very good team.
The season may have only finished yesterday, but Graham is already preparing for next year. Honda today delivered 2 new 600cc bikes, and for the next few weeks he'll run them in and begin rebuilding them with lighter parts. Darren Curtis, NBN News. The Interstate Carnival has been an annual event for the past 20 years and attracts the best crews from the East Coast. In a departure from normal surf carnivals, there are no beach events, all the races are in the water. Newcastle branch crews once dominated all boat categories, but in recent seasons have struggled as some of the big-name clubs snare the young up-and-comers. Cooks Hill, Terrigal and Nobbies performed well in the heats, but were overrun in the finals. The carnival is also a big money earner for Coffs Harbour. It's estimated more than $300,000 is spent in the town in just 2 days. With the Australian titles run over a week next year at Swansea, Newcastle business people and motel owners must be rubbing their hands with glee.
Pilot Martin Hill emerged from the Nelson Bay Polyclinic last night shaken but happy to be alive. He and Gosford architect John McKinney left Southwest Rocks at around 4 o'clock yesterday after surveying property. They were headed for Cooranbong, but flying over Nelson Bay, the engine failed.
By the time we realised what had happened, we had to just put it down in the bay there. So I wanted to get a bit closer into shore, but the engine was dead at that stage, so I just had to... There was a fella in a boat right in front of me, so I had to kind of move away from him too. So
Mike Jones and his daughter Melissa were watching from the shore.
It certainly appeared as though he was going to crash. There was no doubt about that.
Once in the water, the two struggled free of their seatbelts and against a strong current scrambled from the plane.
This guy came along on his boat and we asked him for a rope, so I swam over to the boat to get some kind of rope from the guy, and he was pretty helpful, and he undid the line off his spear gun, and we tied up the plane and tried to tow it into shallow water, but it didn't work. It just filled up with water and we just had to cut the rope and let it go.
The two-seater Cessna sank within seconds.
I've had harder falls than that. This one's probably the closest I've come to death. But
late this afternoon, with hundreds of people looking on, crews salvaged the plane from around 30 metres of water. It was towed onto Little Beach, where it will be pulled apart for transportation by road to Sydney. It's now the property of the insurer. The Bureau of Air Safety is investigating the cause of the crash, but those who saw it have praised the efforts of pilot Martin Hill, who brought the single-engine plane down without injuring anyone. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
The increase took immediate effect from today. Council workers kept busy changing the signs. Parking meters were removed early last month as part of a 6-month trial to entice shoppers back to the CBD. But only days after the 1-hour limit was introduced, there were problems.
There are problems with people who needed longer periods of time. Our initial survey suggested that 86% of people left their parking areas within 1 hour, but maybe we didn't properly cater for the other 14%.
After receiving a number of complaints, the Chamber of Commerce and the City Centre Committee jointly recommended to Council that it change the 1-hour limit to 2 hours. Last night it voted to support the idea.
This is another way of getting the message across that we're going to make it a people-friendly place, a place for people to come and shop and enjoy it, and not to be concerned about being fined if they keep within the time limit of 2 hours.
It's hoped the move will boost Christmas sales, but retailers say free parking is needed for their survival. But it's the shopper who'll have the last word.
Sounds like a good idea to me. Yeah.
Would that entice you to come back into the CBD?
Well, it'd probably help, wouldn't it?
Lots of times you can't get what you have to do in an hour.
So that 2 hours would make a big difference, I think.
Parking meters have always been a drag. When I came to town, I always use a parking station anyway, but it's better now. It's got to be better for us all. Yeah.
I think it's a great idea, but I think it should be longer than 2 hours.
Today, children from Elibana Primary School were learning about science, and they couldn't have had more fun as they blew bubbles, played with mirrors, magnets, stethoscopes and electric circuits.
I'm putting this on the wire and then it's going and then I take it off and then it stops.
Why does it stop?
Because it's not in a circuit.
Called the Science Box, it contains 50 exercises for discovery and exploration. The idea has been imported from England by the Newcastle Chemical Engineering Group.
We released a kit at Elibana Primary School and it's been fantastic, really well supported. The teachers love it, the kids love it, and it fits in totally with their curriculum.
The kit is aimed at 5 to 7-year-olds, and Elibana Primary School is the first to get the box. It is hoped more schools will show interest in the scheme and secure industry sponsorship to purchase a box. Jason Neuenhoff, NBN News.
Meantime, Newcastle is this weekend hosting a goodwill visit by a New Zealand Navy frigate, the Southland. The 240 crew received a warm welcome as she sailed past the Newcastle Maritime Museum, showing the city's friendly colours. A former Royal Navy vessel, Southland is the oldest Leander-class frigate in the world, but Commander Gary Collier says she's being used to train crews for the new Anzac warships.
This ship, one of the reasons we did buy it, I might add, is that she has a fully computerised operations room. Traditionally, ships of this nature were a manual system, and we're able therefore to use the system in preparation for the naval tactical data systems that are about to be introduced for the Anzacs.
Crewing on Southland is unique, with women serving for the first time on a New Zealand frigate.
We have about 16 females on board, and pleased to say they've adapted very well to life on a frigate. Accommodation is somewhat cramped, and we've had no problems at all with them.
The crew will spend the weekend enjoying rest and recreation following exercises with the Australian Navy. The warship won't be open for public inspection. The routes covered by Newcastle buses will be changed in the new year. While passengers consider the impact, there's concern the changes have wider ramifications. State member for Newcastle, Bryce Gaudry, believes the bus operation is being prepared for the next stage of the government's trading enterprise privatisation plan.
Firstly, commercialisation, and they've certainly been doing that in Newcastle buses. The second step, of course, is to break it up into contract sectors, and the third step, put it out for competition with the private sector, and obviously the fourth step would be to privatise Newcastle buses.
Both Mr Gaudry and the Bus Drivers Union believe the new runs have Newcastle and Lake Macquarie divided into 3 sectors, with the packaging of the areas described as far too neat for their liking. State Transit today reassured Newcastle bus patrons there are no plans to privatise its Newcastle operations. Chief Executive Len Harper says the proposed changes will bring long overdue improvements for both existing and future passengers. The authority wants people concerned about the changes to contact Newcastle Bus Management. Gary Blair, NBN News.
Regional galleries throughout the state house significant collections and, like big city galleries, tend to specialise. For instance, at Tamworth, it's fibre art. At Maitland, it's African art. In a bid to encourage more people to explore the galleries, the government has launched a promotional campaign called the Art Trail.
It's going out as far as Broken Hill, of course, and up north to the northern regional galleries. There are 36 in New South Wales, and we are promoting each particular gallery and the particular treasure in each gallery.
For gallery directors like Margaret Sivia, it's a chance to show off those treasures, liaise with nearby galleries and promote the work of locals.
Particularly with the year 2000 and the Olympics, with the influx of the tourists, it's going to be very important. But as far as the regional galleries themselves are concerned, I think it's more to open up to the people in the community what we actually have in our collections and the highlights of our collections.
It's not just art the government plans to promote. Regional areas will also be part of a 4-year cultural festival planned from 1997.
It's going to promote Aboriginal arts in the very first year. We also have Sea Change, Australia's history revolving around the sea, Reaching the World of Australia's best visual arts, and of course the Harbour of Life promoting Sydney, and of course culminating with the year 2000 Olympic Games.
Curry's New South Wales Tidy Town of the Year award recognises the transformation that has been underway in the township for the past 6 years. Keep Australia Beautiful Council judges were impressed by projects including refurbishment of Curry's main street and park beautification. Curry's Tidy Town Committee drew high praise for encouraging the public, business and schools to participate in environmental projects to improve their area. While Curry is best known for its coal mining heritage, the judges were impressed by the way the town had taken advantage of the development of the Richmond Main Colliery and Rail Museum. The North Coast Primary School at Alstonville near Ballina has wrapped up a hat-trick of wins in the awards for its exemplary commitment to environmental education. Students have tackled tree preservation head-on with programs for propagating tree stock and the planting of an estimated 7,000 trees at the school and in the surrounding area. The school has also initiated a paper and PET plastic recycling program. Alstonville Primary and Curry are now vying for National Tidy Town Awards to be announced next May. The nation's most advanced rescue helicopter has the capacity to carry 5 stretcher patients and had its biggest test when 2 cars collided near Wingen in the Upper Hunter. 2 Tamworth people and a Scone woman, all with multiple injuries, were airlifted to Newcastle's John Hunter Hospital. The helicopter used its enhanced capability to carry the 3 patients. Police are continuing inquiries into the New England highway collision. A 31-year-old Scone woman who was also critically injured in the accident was transferred from Scone Hospital to Newcastle by ambulance. She died this morning. Her name hasn't been released.
Six fire officers, a fire truck and 25 litres of washing detergent was needed for the crack exercise. The last time the big bull was cleaned was 4 years ago and the elements had taken their toll. But after 2 hours of work, the fire officers had won their battle against the dirty old bull. Big Bull owner John Eggert was pleased with the work.
Well, that'll add to his sex appeal. He was getting a bit drab in that area, so that'll shine him up a bit.
The fire brigade also benefited from the exercise, practising hooking up their hoses to the fire truck tank instead of a hydrant. Jason Newhoff, NBN News. Taree resident and keen biker Bob Cooper is the brainchild behind the toy run. The first toy run last year attracted huge support from the biking fraternity. Today's rain failed to stop them coming out again this year. About 100 people took part in the run, which wound its way through Wingham, Taree, Tuncurry and Foster. Toys were thrown into a truck which was following the convoy and presented to the Salvation Army at John Wright Park in Foster. The Foster-Tuncurry Salvation Army said the toy run will help provide Christmas presents to up to 100 children. Jason Newhoff, NBN News.